Azoth by Zeitgeistic. Chapter 14. Epilogue. June 2002. It had to be Dumbledore, Harry thought, staring fixedly at the wardrobe. It was just, how did a bloody portrait move things about in the castle? And then again, Harry doubted being dead would put much of a damp on Dumbledore's scheming, quite frankly. But that didn't necessarily mean he had to play along. He narrowed his eyes. Ahead of him, to the left, stood a wardrobe, ground faintly blue from within. Ahead of him, to the right, stood a mirror, angled just far enough away that he couldn't see his reflection. Harry had stumbled on this room on the way back from his Potioneer's Guild examination, exhausted and elated that he was within weeks of calling himself Potion's master. He'd done well. He'd done really well. He didn't need his results to know that, so the question was, what did Dumbledore think he would learn from another viewing of his boggart and his heart's desire? There was no question that this was not a coincidence. Harry was nearly a potions master. Potions master didn't believe in those. He shifted, getting more comfortable in his spot on the floor, leaning against the wall. Did he look in the mirror? Where did Dumbledore get off on still trying to control him? He was 22 years old, for Merlin's sake. He'd already done his Dark Lord thing, and he'd passed the potions apprenticeship with a very bored and orny Severus Snape. He'd more than proved himself. The door beside him creaked open, and Draco peered in. His eyes fell on Harry, took in his disgruntled expression. He stepped inside and shut the door behind him. "There you are." "Here I am," agreed Harry, scowling at the wardrobe. He heard Draco's sigh from somewhere above and to his right, and then he was moving in front of him, coming around to slide down the wall next to Harry. He rolled his head over to regard him, grey eyes deathly blue in the reflected light. "I'm afraid to ask," he murmured. "I was sure you'd pass, but you look so angry that I'm beginning to worry." Harry breathed a laugh, turned his head to face Draco. Their noses brushed, and the brief connection sent a rush of wanting right through Harry. He couldn't help himself. He pushed himself up and swung a leg over Draco's thighs to straddle him. "I passed," he said against Draco's lips. Draco groaned and arched up, his hands coming around Harry's waist to tuck him closer. Harry threaded his fingers through Draco's hair, fingers scratching lightly over his scalp. "What's got your knickers so knotted, then?" Draco said through a gasp. "The bloody mirror," Harry said. "And the wardrobe, too. I don't like them." "They're dated," Draco said, peering at them, "but not especially offensive." Harry nipped his earlobe to bring his attention back to where it ought to be, and Draco responded appropriately, huffing out a little moan and arching his neck invitingly. "It's Dumbledore's doing," Harry said. "He's scheming again. There's a boggart in that wardrobe, and the mirror shows the thing one ought already know." Obviously unconcerned by lurking dark creatures, Draco's hand came around to unbutton the front of Harry's apprentice robes, and Harry, thinking this was a good idea indeed, did the same with Draco's. Their hands clashed more than once, but Harry was rather more inclined towards speed than finesse, and so this bothered him not at all. Finally, Draco was pushing his robes off his shoulders and down his arms. He tucked his t-shirt over his head and bent down again to lick Draco's feverish skin, delighting in the throaty moan that followed. "Yes," said Draco. "I was thinking about this all day, about how much I wanted to fuck you after my exams last week, how good it was. Wanted you to fuck me after yours." Harry growled and kissed his way from Draco's neck to his jaw before reaching his mouth to kiss his fiercely there. He undulated his hips in Draco's laps, reminding them both of the way Harry had ridden him after Draco's Transfiguration Mastery exam. He'd not known why Draco was so randy afterwards until now, when he was still riding the high of his own shattering examination. "Take those robes off, Apprentice Malfoy." Draco smirked against his lips. "Not anymore. Results came today while you were in exams. You may call me Master Malfoy." Merlin, that only made Harry harder. He hadn't thought it was possible. "Master Malfoy," he murmured. Well, I like the way that sounds. Perhaps tonight I shall, but now, master or not, you'll do what I say, and I say, take off those ropes. Draco snapped his fingers. The rest of their clothes disappeared. Vanish to your rooms, he said. They'll be back when you conjure them. I promise I didn't destroy them this time. The alarmed look left Harry's face to be replaced by one of amusement and maybe arousal. You're better at that than me now, it's hot. Draco laughed breathily. I've another thing I can do better than you now, too. Watch. It scrambled off him, and he stood, flicking open his water bottle to pour some into his hand. Closed his fist, then his eyes, concentrating. When he opened his hand again, the water was slick and viscous. The examiners like this one. Olive oil from water. Wondless. Harry's eyes darkened. He could feel arousal settling into his body like a hot, dark blanket. What will you do with that? He asked softly. Draco smirked, turned, and leaned against the wall, supporting himself on one hand. With the other, covered in oil, he reached back and ran his fingers down the cleft of his own arse. Harry made a pained noise in the back of his throat, took 2 quick steps forward before Draco stopped him with a word. Harry, be patient. Don't you want to see my transfiguration master in action? Yes, Harry growled. After a few minutes, Draco cleared his throat. What's your problem with the boggart in the wardrobe? He asked. Harry shook his head, but being as he was still pressed against Draco's skin, it made very little difference. He pressed a kiss to Draco's back. Nothing now. Draco laughed. Then what boggart-related philosophical thoughts had you so wound up when I came in? There was so much there, so many things that he had no idea how to explain. He could drink the elixir for 1,000 years and never have enough time to explain to Draco all the fragmented thoughts running through his head at the side of the mirror and the wardrobe. They'd caused this. But there was one thing he knew now, one thing he'd not known when he and Hermione came up on the same room in 8th year. He'd once dearly wanted to just be himself, but if he looked in the mirror now, there would be 2 people looking back. Just them, like a regular mirror. Both his greatest fear and his heart's desire were the same as they were then, but changed. Transmuted. He'd created a philosopher's stone, but this was his great work. Me without you, I murmured against his sweat-soaked skin. That's what it meant. I was never afraid of being myself at all. I was just afraid of me without you. You are my Azoth. The end. Thank you for listening to Azoth by Zeitgeistic. I really hope you enjoyed this book and you will stay on for the next one I will record, which will start very soon, so everyone can be quite excited about that. I really enjoyed reading this book, and thanks again to Zeitgeistic for letting me read this book. It is one of my favorite Drarrys ever, and I'm so happy I got the chance to do this. As always, if you would like to stay up to date, you can follow me on YouTube, Spotify, or also AO3. Thanks to all of you for listening.